What was the worst time you've ever been sick? Shingles was pretty horrific. I had it down my spine and even the bed sheets touching my back made me scream in agony. Combine it with strong antiviral meds and painkillers, and I had lucid dreams about my boyfriend at the time murdering me. Also, when I had tonsillitis at a festival and it was so bad I started hallucinating and couldn't even drink water without agony. I have multiple chronic illnesses and disabilities, most of which cause daily pain, but having an ovarian cyst burst when I was at work was pretty rough too. I was in a ball on the floor swearing and sweating for 2 hours. Norovirus. Easily the worst and most sick I've ever been in my life, probably should have gone to the ER. I puked violently all the while pooping liquid at the same time, for about 14 hours. Then after was so dehydrated and couldn't keep anything down, water, Sprite, etc. I was dizzy and bedridden for 6 days and felt like I had vertigo and could not get out of bed. Every time I moved my eyes to look at something I would almost pass out, and if I had to use the bathroom, I had to crawl. And then because of only eating soup, bread, and crackers, was then constipated for another week. I had pneumonia about 6 different times in my early years, one of which left me in a coma for 2 weeks. In terms of personal experience though, the worst was an infection I had in my jawbone. I have nerve damage in my face, so I didn't even feel it until my teeth started to fall out without the support of my upper jaw. I had all of the teeth in the top half of my mouth removed along with a sizable chunk of bone that had also started to necrotize. They had to make a cast of my bone and teeth and wired it in place. On the bright side, my top teeth never produce plaque and don't stain. I had a laparoscopic day surgery 6 hours. I was home by the afternoon. All good. They warned me that there can be pain caused by the anesthesia leaving the body, or something like that. No worries, I got meds. Holy fuck. The next day was the worst pain I've ever felt. The pain in my shoulders and upper body was so extreme. The actual surgery pain was nothing compared to that. And the narcotics didn't touch it. I literally couldn't move. Also, being constipated due to the drugs. It was awful. That's a terrible feeling, needing to go and not being able to. Fuck that life. I got super sick with COVID, but I not only got COVID, I also got 9 bleeding stomach ulcers while I had COVID, because I couldn't keep anything down and kept trying to treat my symptoms with OTC meds on a very raw empty stomach for 7 straight days. Started vomiting coffee grounds, went to the ER and got admitted, had an endoscope the next day. 9 bleeding ulcers. The gastroenterologist said the inside of my stomach looked like I had road rash. Took several months and quite a few meds to clear up, and to this day I still have almost debilitating heartburn. COVID sucked. I got COVID halfway through my family's Disney trip. They forced me to come along with them, in the Florida sun, standing in lines for hours. They would make fun of me if I sat down. I was on the verge of tears all day. The best part? My stepmom told me that if I went back to the hotel to rest I couldn't come to dinner that night. There was no other way for me to get food, and she told me they wouldn't be bringing anything back for me. When we got home and my dad started showing symptoms, suddenly he was such a trooper for getting through the airport with it. Crock of shit. I once got a case of food poisoning so bad that I'm pretty sure the toilet seat still has finger marks on the underside from where I was gripping it, so I wouldn't achieve fucking lift from the force of the shit rocketing out of my ass combined with the force of the vomit straight down into a bucket I found. Between rounds of this I would dump the bucket and chug water from a gallon jug just so I'd have something to fucking throw up, because I knew my body would try. If you're ever in the Flathead Valley in Montana, fucking avoid Angelo's Pizza. It will try to kill you. Bad case of pneumonia. I was in the hospital for nearly a month. I had been coughing violently at night. Even laughing hard sent me into a coughing fit that became painful. I ignored it for a month. I hate going to the doctor. I don't remember much, but I guess my mom decided enough was enough when I was coughing more violently and forced me to go to the emergency room. Immediately admitted, and sent to ICU, apparently. I don't remember things, so I only know what I was told. I was out for about a week until I woke. I was told why I had been admitted then. I had just arrived in Revelstoke, BC for a week-long ski trip. I'd just driven 15 hours and wasn't feeling well. Chest pain. Coughing. Couldn't get a deep breath in. Arrived in Revi and went straight to the ER. I was diagnosed with pneumonia and bronchitis. The ER doctor was also a skier, and knew there was little chance I wouldn't ski. He gave me an inhaler and told me if I started coughing up blood to get back to the hospital. My god, the pain in my chest, but it was right after a storm cycle and I wasn't missing out on fresh powder. If you know, you know. 2014 a young niece lovingly gifted me some Word Death kombu for Christmas. I left like a vice was wrapped around my head. I couldn't keep down fluids, could hardly stand. My fever was so high I had a seizure. Slept and lived off popsicles for 2 weeks. Took a whole month to get back to 100. And before, why didn't you go to the hospital? I'd already racked up a huge medical bill at the ER a few months prior because I didn't bleed to death and didn't want another. America. When COVID came about, I knew if it was anything like whatever that was, I would die. All of summer 2016. Don't know why, but I was spontaneously puking the entire summer for seemingly no reason. My dad and I were in Quebec, and he decided that it was gluten, and the day we were in Quebec City, I couldn't eat gluten. It wasn't gluten. I puked as soon as we got back to our hotel. But yeah, it was like I had mild food poisoning all summer for no reason, and I had to be so careful with any food at all, or I would puke. Second worst time. Camping this summer, got food poisoning while in the middle of nowhere. Really fun. I've had COVID twice, I think. Maybe 3? And the worst sickness I've ever had was COVID 2021. I got it on New Year's and I was sick all the way into mid-February. I couldn't get out of bed. I was so weak, my respiratory was very bad, my headache lasted forever and fevers were in the 104F zone. I ended up powering through it with the support of water and Jello. It's all I could manage to get down. Things were normal for me for a long time after that. I struggled well into March with recovery and being able to just walk upstairs. I ate bad Chinese that gave me food poisoning. I was on my bathroom floor for 3 days heaving anything I put in my system, water included. I finally decided this is where I was going to die, and they'd find my body after a few weeks with my cats eating my face. I didn't have the strength to move a muscle, I was laid out for good. I woke up the 4th day with an appetite and could keep water down and had the strength to get up off the floor, the first time in a few days. I didn't eat Chinese food for a few years after that. I got food poisoning from dodgy mussels. After going to a cocktail masterclass as a last hurrah with my friend before she left the country indefinitely. Unfortunately, her toilet was in a separate room from the rest of her bathroom, so it was impossible to sit on the toilet while simultaneously puking into the basin bath. The only blessing was it didn't last that long, so I was able to go out for our planned fancy brunch the next day, even if all I managed was half a piece of toast and butter that I think cost me about £6. My worst was only the flu, but 4 out of 6 of us got it at Christmas and it was really bad, like we could only crawl to the loo. Both adults were completely incapacitated. We each had a very young child very sick in bed with us. We were in different rooms. The 2 eldest were only 8 and 6. They lived on yogurt, toast and Christmas chocolates for 4 days. No one visited, no one came to help us. I'm grateful to have never been as ill as some of the other commenters. But flu, proper flu, that is no bloody joke. Went to a 4th of July barbecue years ago and everyone there ended up at a doctor's office or the hospital, including me and my sisters. Violent vomiting and shitting liquids I didn't know I had simultaneously all day for 4 days, including fever, chills, sweating profusely. When I wasn't in the bathroom, I was in a fetal position on the couch watching comedies, to help me feel better. Had nothing but Gatorade, Pedialyte and water. After the 4 days of apocalypse now in my pants, it just lifted. Mono when I was a kid. I couldn't do anything other than sit there. I couldn't eat solid foods for what felt like forever because it felt like razor blades across my throat. I was weak and lost a ton of weight and was quite scared by it all. And it took them a while to diagnose it. They thought it was a few things much scarier. It lasted an entire summer and it took a couple of years before I felt completely normal again. Close second, gallbladder attacks. I've never had pain like that. Probably the time in college when after months of terrible eating sleeping habits I ended up with a simultaneous double ear infection, throat infection, and pink eye in both eyes, right after finals week. I could barely swallow my own spit and mostly remember trying to sleep partially propped up and downing NyQuil. I ended up having to get antibiotics for the ear infection and then lost the pill bottle, so I had to drag myself to the pharmacy for a replacement. 0-10. Would not recommend. In 2017 I had the flu strep at the same time. My throat was so swollen and full of white splotches that drinking even just water felt like I was swallowing glass. I couldn't eat anything for 7 days. They had to prescribe me a Novocaine rinse gargle, just so I could drink water and avoid dehydration. My fever was so high I was hallucinating. Literally I've never been so sick in my life. 0-10 do not recommend. I understand now how people used to die from the flu back in the day. I was in my early 20s, and I was suffering from what I thought was my second bout of food poisoning in 2 months. But this time, I couldn't stop throwing up, to the point where I couldn't even keep water down. My buddy dropped me off at the ER, and after a quick exam and a scan, they discovered my appendix was inflamed to the size of a football. They were surprised I wasn't doubled over in pain. I had surgery that day and definitely had a different perspective on life after that. I was at a field training and got really bad pneumonia, got sent back to base to get tested for it and ended up with strep throat, COVID, IBS, and whooping cough. Needless to say, I couldn't stop coughing and sneezing, and every time I did I splattered something with shit. I spent most of 2 weeks on the toilet to avoid constantly having to change clothes or clean bed sheets and furniture or walls and floors, all while dealing with my body hurting and aching all over. Not sick to be honest, but I was on my period when suddenly a cramp made me so sick to the point my blood pressure dropped. It was so bad my fingers were purple, so my mouth and the rest of my body pale as a corpse. I could feel my heart trying to beat. I thought I was going to die honestly. So my mom thought the same. She started to pray. It was in the pandemic BTW. We were scared to go to the hospital and I was so calm at this point, ready to go to the other side.